Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel, Helen's Talk. This is your girl, Helen. How are you all doing today? And I want to talk today about coping mechanisms because we've started a new year and we all have to find ways to cope, through everything that happens to us. So today I'm talking about coping mechanisms. How do we cope? How do you cope with life? How do you cope with success, failures, stress, burdens, needs, desires? How do you cope with your own intrinsic needs? How do you cope with others, your neighbors, your family members, your friends, your colleagues at work? Different situations happening every day. And we sort of have to manage them. We have to like live through them. We have to deal with things. We have to still wake up in the morning and look fresh and look nice. We still have to go out there, either go to school or go to work, meet people, run our business. So I think for me, it's very, very difficult to try and, move through life with all those things coming at you from different angles. So how do we cope with this? How do we work through life? How do we manage it? Um, we have to understand that coping is a necessary skill. It's something we have to do. We have to just learn how to do it. There are different ways to cope. People cope positively, and unfortunately, some people cope negatively. So we have this intrinsic, coping mechanisms that is like shock absorbers, like patterns that's already been inbuilt within us as human beings. Everyone, has to find a way to cope. Everyone knows how to cope instinctively. You just find a way to manage things. Now, talking about coping mechanisms, the positive mechanisms are maybe faith. Some people have faith. Like I've got faith. I'm a Christian, so I would pray. I would read the Bible. I would meditate. People also have different coping mechanisms like maybe music. People listen to music, different kinds of genres. Some will, watch movies. Some people will socialize. Some people will go out with friends. Some people will travel. Some people go shopping. So there are many kinds of ways where we can cope with life. Some people do like positive meditation, motivational talks to themselves, pep talks to themselves in the morning. Look in your mirror. Have sticky notes of positive mantras or positive short words verses to yourself or phrases, just to motivate and inspire yourself every single day. That's like positive coping mechanisms. Also, people reach out to others, seek help, ask questions, ask for support. In some countries, you have like helplines where you can make a phone call, you can call, and somebody will speak to you over the phone. Also, people cope by going on maybe social media, to seek help. Somebody posted during COVID to say, I'm lonely, I'm by myself, I feel very down, I can't really cope. And that man, I think it was in Australia or Canada, he made so many friends. People reached out to him, people started talking to him, people started messaging him, and then I think some people locally actually went to find him. So for me, I think you can cope in various ways. There are many ways where we can cope. We can find coping mechanisms with whatever happens to us in life. Also, you can cope by, maybe like starting something. For example, you might be stressed at work and you might think, okay, how do I cope? Okay, I'll give myself a distraction. All right, I might start maybe a group. I might start maybe a book club. I might start maybe a cooking class. Different things that you could do to relieve the pressure, relieve the tension, reduce the stress. So coping mechanisms are very important. Now, I will have to drill a bit into negative coping mechanisms. Unfortunately, we all build differently, and some people will end up having negative coping mechanisms, developing them or utilizing them. Some negative coping mechanisms, for example, could be isolating yourself, keeping away from everyone, not talking to anyone, internalizing. So you're internalizing everything, not speaking up, you're not reaching out, you're keeping yourself away, staying in your bedroom, staying in bed, starvation, not eating, or maybe overeating. So it could be under eating or overeating. So some people would go on and starve themselves, which is when we have issues with eating disorders like anorexia, bulimia, and some people then overeat and overindulge, and stop themselves with food. Sometimes also negative coping mechanisms could be maybe self-harming, where you're trying to hurt yourself, either physically or mentally, by having doing risky behaviors, or even physically hurting your body. Some other negative coping mechanisms are like maybe being negative to yourself, putting yourself out there in danger. Some people actually have like risky sexual behaviors. Some people have like risk going to dangerous places at night, different things. It could range from a different range of behaviors, even up to suicidal ideations and thoughts, which is very, very, very sad and very, very strong places to be. So I would always say, if you find yourself going down the road of the negative coping mechanisms, try to find a way to come back. It's good to identify quickly if you're not talking to anyone, if you're keeping to yourself, if you're very angry with yourself, if you're self-blaming, if you're self-hurting, if you're abusing. So from some people, you just bring yourself down. You talk to yourself, "Oh, I'm stupid," or "I'm an idiot," or no. I think once you see you're doing that, and you're, just like putting yourself down in your mind and blaming yourself for things that are happening, or not, giving yourself the benefit of doubt, or not giving yourself a pat on the back. Once you say that is happening to you, you have to understand that that is a negative coping mechanism. Once people are asking you, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And you say, I'm fine, and you're not fine, that is a negative coping mechanism. Once people start to worry about you and they tell you, "Oh, we're concerned," and you're saying, "Leave me alone, I'm all right," that is negative coping mechanism. So it's very important that we all try to manage and cope with life positively. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. But I think when we reach out, when we are self-aware of what's happening to us, when we, take stock of what's happening to us, then we would realize very quickly if we are coping positively or negatively. There's also something called burnout. So when you are, coping and you feel, what, I'm overwhelmed. I can't even do this anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going to. I feel like ending it all. I feel like just getting under the blanket and not bringing my head out of the blanket. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to smile. Nothing is making me happy. The skies look gray and very dark. You could look at your family. You can't get joy from them. You can't get joy from your friends. You can't get joy from work. You can't get joy from any social gathering you go to. You can't get joy from the things you really, really like to do before, the things you really love, maybe like books, reading, music, movies, socializing, going out, whatever it is you love before. If you suddenly find yourself hating them, not enjoying them, then you understand they are not coping well. That's a red flag right there for you. And once you realize that, then you have to reach out for help. You need to dig into yourself, dig very deep into yourself and reach out for help. It might not be easy. You might not feel like, you most likely would not feel like reaching out for help, because you just feel no one can help me. It all feels as if there's no way out. That is the beginning of you going down the negative coping mechanism pathway. It's a very dark, deep, and very painful, scary place to be. So I always encourage everyone, when you start to feel like that, you need to start to think, you have to jumpstart yourself, like, okay, I need to find help. I need to seek help. Because there is never, ever a situation, no situation is the end. No, there's no situation like that. Every situation, everything that happens to us in life is always a bend around the corner. Always a bend around the corner. The road never ends. It never ends. So whatever is happening to you, whatever you're going through, no matter how deep or dark or scary or bad or terrible that situation is, or how life is, or that season is, or that period in life is, no matter how terrible it is, it's not the end of the road. It always looks like this mountain is the biggest mountain I've ever experienced, but it is actually not. It is not. That's what you have to remind yourself. That's what I'm trying to tell us today. It's not. There is always a way. There's always a bend. There's always a corner. And when we are able to navigate that bend, navigate that corner, you see that the next road you will get into will actually be a positive road. There's always a solution to every problem. There's always an answer to every question. There's always a silver lining at the end of every tunnel. No matter how terrible life is, it would get better if we persevere, if we reach out, if we try to implement coping mechanisms that would help us, that would support us, that would enable us to be able to navigate that process, navigate that path. Then we will be able to get relief, comfort, answers, solutions, joy at the end of it all, peace at the end of it all. So whatever has happened in our lives, or whatever happens in our lives, this year, I want to encourage us to cope positively. Find a way to cope positively. Find the means to cope positively. It could be within yourself, intrinsically. It could be externally, by finding people, by finding ways outside of yourself to cope. Whatever it is you think you can do to help you, like I said, just try. Because there is no need, there is no purpose, there is no result, there is no benefit to negative coping mechanisms. There is none at all. But obviously, we are human beings and we all find ourselves going down that road sometimes. But reach out to someone today, speak to someone, do something, take that step, that first step to coping positively with whatever's happening to you. And I hope and pray for you that you find help and you find a way out of it, and everything will get better day by day, slowly but surely, if you're able to find a way to cope positively with whatever happens and whatever you're going through. Thank you, everyone, for your listening, and have a good Sunday. It's your girl Helen signing out.